Welcome to the Caring Matters podcast. I'm Liz Tassone. I'm a volunteer with Catholic Charities, and I'm here with Sister Jeanette Jabour, and we're going to make this part two of as we talked about aging as a spiritual journey. And the first part we talked about just acknowledging another person's story and how that enhances your own story and enhances your own life as you listen to another person's story. But Sister, I also wanted to ask you about when you're with someone who might be suffering. That's a difficult seat to be in, as if your loved one is suffering, either physically, emotionally. And if you have any suggestions to how to be with that.
Well, my suggestion is to really understand that that's real, that suffering is real. The person not just saying they're suffering or they hurt, to understand that that's a real part, and it's part of this spiritual journey, and it's hard to accept because who wants to suffer? You don't choose it, but it comes with the territory, so to speak. If something's not going right, then we suffer. So understanding another and not running away from it. I think sometimes I've met people who don't want to be near anyone that's suffering. They don't want to see it. And I wonder sometimes if that's because you don't want to see it in yourself. And I think that has something to do with it. And so try to be as comfortable as you can so the person, it doesn't add to their suffering, but alleviate them. And understanding, I think, is a really big issue. Just saying, I appreciate, I know you're suffering, and I'm sorry, and I wish I could do something. I don't know what that is, but perhaps I can pray for you.
Okay. So having a level of compassion towards what they're telling you.
And believing them. Mm-hmm. Yes, having a level of compassion is very, very good.
And to acknowledge that you can pray for them. You can also pray with them if they're open to that.
Mm-hmm. I think by praying with another person, hopefully we're helping them feel more comfortable in God's presence, and then enabling them to speak to God more freely. So at times, I know I pray spontaneously at times. And at that time, I choose words that are familiar to me, but they might not be to a person with whom I'm praying. God understands familiar words, but he also sometimes likes the ones that the person knows. For example, I was visiting a gentleman. He was a young man, and he had a stroke, and he was comatose. He was in the hospital, and I was visiting him, and I was getting no response. So I was praying spontaneously because that comes easy for me. Nothing. Finally, I said, "Hail Mary, full of grace," and he jerked and kind of bumped. And in my mind, I think he understood the familiar words. Mm-hmm. And then he quieted down. And so that let me know that my own way of praying, it might not be everybody's way of praying. And to pray familiar words might help them be in a more atmosphere of peace and comfort with God.
Okay. And I think just that offer of prayer, offer to pray with, and not everybody's comfortable praying out loud with someone, but the offer to pray for someone, I think is
I think it's good to, right. I think it's good to remind the person that God's pleased with them whether or not they speak actual words of prayer. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people say, "I can't pray anymore." It's okay, just be in God's presence. That's suffering with God, and being in God's presence is also a prayer. Mm-hmm. And God loves them, you, me, all of us, as we are.
Very good. Very good. Oftentimes, forgiveness is an important issue as someone ages and maybe approaches towards the end of their life, and maybe there's some unresolved issues and need for forgiveness or need to forgive. So how might you address that kind of uncomfortable topic with a lot of people?
Well, I think in the process of remembering, person has a lot of time on their hands, I mean, a lot of time, or a lot of quiet time, I think they remember. Sometimes their whole life goes before them. And often, even in praying, forgiveness, especially the need of it, arises. And I suspect it's a need in the lives of many people, whether or not we wish to admit it or even bring it up. Mm-hmm. And for me, just an insert here, recalling, I don't know if anyway, recalling Jesus' teaching and life was helpful for me, especially this past Lent, when I went to on the 14 stations of the cross, and I remember seeing Jesus way up on the cross, looking down on all those who just killed him, who hurt him, who didn't trust him. And he said, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." And his face was beautiful. That was very meaningful to me. So I try to remember that. But I think many carry hurts and pain into old age. And these can be opportunities for spiritual growth if there's someone with whom they can walk with them. It might be hard to process alone, although I think it's possible. So lingering spiritual pain is often worse than physical pain, even when physical pains are numerous. You believe that?
Yes.
Okay. Opportunities for contact with a friend or family member with whom one was at odds with, they diminish with age. And often there's a need for forgiveness, but the person's not around anymore. And this only deepens with time. You know, there's travel, or the person has died, or you can't contact them. They're just not around anymore. And it's very difficult to come to some kind of forgiveness with that person. But so dealing with memories are essential to a healthy spiritual life. I had a story of two blood-related sisters. They were in the same nursing home. They were in two different sections. They never talked to or wanted to visit each other. And I, coming from the family I come from, had a hard time understanding that. But I could see that. Both were advanced in age. They both experienced severe health problems. And I somehow learned, that they both really wanted to do something about reconciliation with the other. They didn't know how to bring it about. And with the grace of God, I tried to facilitate that process. They had a memorable visit, a wonderful visit. They forgave each other, forgave themselves. I almost can't tell you about it now. It was so memorable. And they both died peacefully a short time later. They've been carrying that around for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness was essential. They just didn't know how to go about doing it.
And it sounds like, at least in this case, what you're saying is sometimes the forgiveness is a sticking point with being able to transition to the next life.
That's what it appeared to be.
Yeah.
That's what it appeared to be.
That there's unfinished business that needed to be done for them to have a peaceful death.
Right.
So it's
That's
important
what it
work.
looked like. It was a good lesson for me to learn and to see and to witness that.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you've witnessed this more than once in terms of people needing to make resolutions and peace with others.
That's why I try to visit people and have an openness between us so that they can feel free to say what they have to say and get it out and possibly move on to the next step if that's what's supposed to happen.
And regardless, it may just offer some freedom in there today, even if it doesn't.
They need to know that it's going to remain confidential. That there were, even the stories I tell, I use different names in a different century, in a different decade. But the stories, I think, are important because they help others. But they need to know that they're going to be respected with confidence.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much, Sister. This is an important topic. I think people need to know that that part of the caregiving process sometimes isn't about doing somebody's dishes or getting them to the doctor, but also being on a journey with another and being willing to listen to story, being able to walk with them wherever they are in their kind of recalling their lives. And that's an honor to do that with someone.
It is.
Wouldn't you say?
It's a real honor to do that. It's a real honor.
So to pay attention to that part of the caregiving experience, that you're walking with another on very sacred ground at times. So it's an important thing.
It's something to hold special in one's heart.
Very good. Well said. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you
for addressing this important topic. I'm Liz Tassone. Again, I want to thank Sister Jeanette Jabour for her insight on these wonderful caregiving topics. And I want to also thank our sponsors who are listed on this page. And if you're interested in learning more about them, you can click on those sites and go direct to their websites. Thank you for listening, and always remember that caring matters.